Welcome back to Hoffman Tactical. In today's video, we are talking about the version 3.9 LR-308 super lower. This is the latest LR-308 lower that I've designed. It is actually based off of the version 4.8 SL15, which is the Gen 3 SL15 lower, which features the integrated grip and all of the updated geometry. And this is actually based off of the same CAD file as the SL15 with just a lot of changes to make it work with the LR-308 geometry. It has all the latest features. We're going to take this upper off and show you them. All right, that's better. We can pull the mag out. So we also have a super safety in here, which we'll talk about a little bit later in today's video. That's also quite interesting. This lower has really all the same features as the SL15. So it has the integrated grip, the set screw, which holds the selector switch detent for your selector switch or super safety. It uses a set screw that comes in from the bottom. Of course, it has the integrated trigger guard with the improved ergonomics around it with a higher grip point so that you don't have any finger pressure points. That's all been added just like the SL15. I've reworked the positions of the right side and left side over here, so it's basically exactly the same feel and ergonomics as the SL15. Your access to your magazine catch and everything's in the same spot. Speaking of the magazine catch, I actually reworked some of the internals so that you can use an AR-15 magazine catch and you don't really need the extended LR-308 magazine catch anymore. So that makes it so that the parts are a little bit easier to find. It works fine with that. The last bolt hold open system, I've moved away from the threaded set screw that was used on the older LR-308s and on most commercial LR-308s. This now uses the same 1/2 inch 3/32 dowel pin, which comes in from inside the magazine well, and it's tapped out through the hole on the inside of the fire control group pocket, which is exactly the same as the SL15. The only difference is it comes in from the magazine well side instead of the outside, just because of the thickness of the lower. So that makes sourcing parts a bit easier and is easier to install, in my opinion. It's much easier to tap it in and then fiddle with an Allen key. The front takedown pin plates, there will be a metal option. They are actually very similar in design to the older LR-308s. Because of the way the width of the front lug and the width of the lower works out, I can't use the cheek plate method like I did in the SL15. The reason I did that was to make the plates lower cost to machine. So these plates are like 25% more expensive to machine. It's actually not that big of a difference, but it is more, which isn't optimal. It's a little more pricey in the kits, but it works, and they can also be printed in plastic. So there will be a metal option for that, pretty much the same as it's been all the way back to the original super lower in design. They just clamp on with screws that come through, and obviously there's a hole for the detent for that pin. The fire control group area is exactly the same as the SL15. It's fully super safety compatible. We'll talk about that in a bit. The lever is different, it has to change. The support rib, this is where I spent a lot of time trying to rework the way it blends in here. On an LR-308, it's difficult to add enough material while still maintaining good ergonomics. And this large buffer extension doesn't make it particularly easy to blend. I ended up getting it working actually pretty well, so that this is obviously a super safety, which is easy to access. But even with a conventional selector switch, getting your thumb in here is actually no problem at all. And it's actually easier to access than a lot of commercial billet machined LR-308 lowers, I think, which is pretty cool because that support rib is just perfectly blended and as flush as possible. Over on the right-hand side here, it has an exposed hole, so you can select the super safety back and forth. It is not aim by selector compatible though, because I need to keep enough material up here to be strong enough. So it's just like the SL15. You can access the hole, but you can't actually put a rotating selector switch there. So that's a bit of a compromise, same as SL15. The rest of the geometry is very, very similar. There's a little expanded area here for the front takedown pin plates. This is where I put the detent pin, and I had to make it a kind of an expanded area there, like you'll see on some, actually like Mil-Spec AR-15 lowers have this for their detent pins over on the right side. I had to do this because I needed to make these walls thinner so that they were flush with the plates. Just that way the plates were a bit easier to machine. I didn't have to machine a special pocket for the head here. I could just make everything flush, and that made the plates a bit lower cost to machine, which is a good thing. So that's why it has that little piece there. I don't usually use those, but it's just because I made the walls slimmer. So actually this lower is quite a bit slimmer than the previous LR-308 lowers I've done, and just as strong. So it's just a bit more optimized in that way, which is pretty awesome. So that is really all there is to it. There's not much there. It has been released. It has detailed documentation, assembly video, everything. Finally, first LR-308 assembly video I've done. It's all available. If you look on the ODC, just use Google, look for Hoffman Tactical. You'll find links to everything you need to find this guy and it's pretty fun. LR-308s are fun, 308 is fun, so go ahead and print yourself one, let me know what you think. Why are you here?
I'm just doing my job.
So am I. Now let's talk about the LR-308 Super Safety. So right here, you can see we have the lever. I have a whole video on how this works. Basically, you pull the trigger, weapon fires, the hammer gets pushed back, the lever gets pushed back, rotating the cam, which resets the trigger, the bolt comes forward, hits the lever, which pushes it forward, releasing the trigger, allowing the weapon to fire again. Look at the video on the subject to see exactly how it works. Now, on the AR-15, this is an LR-308 bolt carrier group, but on an AR bolt carrier group, which is what the original Super Safety was designed for, this surface is your hammer cam surface. This little point right here is what pushes the lever rearward, and then this point here pushes the lever back forwards. Now, this surface here is about 80 thousandths lower than this surface. What that means is that when the bolt comes to the rear, this surface here can come back, push the lever all the way to the rear, and then it can just slide back over the lever like this without interfering with it. And then when it comes back forward, because this surface is so much lower, it'll hit the lever no problem and flip it forward. The LR-308 is a little bit less optimized. These surfaces are basically at the same height for practical purposes. I think this is like 3 thousandths lower than this surface, lower. So it's not enough to work with. So it makes it difficult to have the bolt push the lever back forward and have this surface ride over the lever in the rear and not interfere with it. Basically, if you want it to catch here, it will interfere here because there's not enough clearance. So I had to come up with a solution for this. I've played with things in the past, like the top of the lever bending, but it's never worked very well. So what I did here is kind of a hybrid system, and I'm going to show you a lever. All right, so right here you can see we have the lever, and the top of it is actually split. It bends down, the cut bends around the corner here and has a little, basically it's a little flexure right here. So we have a top piece which can flex like that. It's like a little leaf spring with a flexure. And when the bolt comes back, it rotates the lever and this just bends down, giving it enough clearance. When the bolt comes back forward again, the carrier comes off of it, lets it pop up, and the trip point can hit it and flip it back forward. And that's basically how it works. We just put a little springy piece there and it flips back and forward and it makes up that clearance on the bolts. So now this can come back, hold it, but it pops up in time to get hit and flip forward. So it's really actually quite simple. It's just a little bit of movement which is necessary for this to function on the LR-308. So I'm using PLA to print these levers out and they're actually working pretty good. So far we have like 140 rounds through this one and it's working fine. It's probably gonna wear out at some point. PLA is, this is PLA Pro. It's probably not the best filament for the job, but it's springy enough and stiff enough that it does work. There are better options, and this could probably be wire EDM'd in some sort of a spring steel with some slight changes to geometry and last indefinitely. So it's a little bit trickier to make strong than the previous lever, but it's working. So that's awesome. I will be releasing this as well, and keep an eye on that as a super safety supplement for all of you guys who want to run 308s super safe. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out the LR-308 lower on all the regular places. Print one out. Let me know what you think about it. You can find kits, of course, on the website, and I'll see you guys again later. Thanks so much for watching.